Sakshi. I'm host for the night. With me, I have Nimisha and Shivangi, our two wonderful speakers. Nimisha successfully got an admit to INSEAD, and Shivangi got admitted to HEC. So, what I will do is, Nimisha, you can introduce yourself, and then Shivangi, you can introduce yourself in a bit depth so that the applicants and the audience understands your profile.
Thanks, Shakshi. Hi guys, good evening. So I'm Nimisha. I graduated. My bachelor's degree was in management studies from Xavier's in Bombay, post which I have been working in the consulting domain for the past almost 5 years now. I started with strategy consulting, then pivoted to government consulting in the Middle East. So currently I'm in the UAE, and I began my journey with MBA and beyond last year, very close to my application deadline, in fact. But it's been great, and now I'll be moving on to INSEAD in August this year. Very happy to be here and very excited to answer any questions anybody may have.
Great, Shivangi.
Sure. Hi, Nimisha, and rest of the people joining the. Sorry, I got muted. So my name is Shivangi Srivastav, and on a work experience side, I have over 8.5 years of experience, primarily into marketing. I have spent my first 4 years in diverse industries, just trying to understand what works best for me. But the last 4 years are primarily focused of being within the healthcare sector. I call myself a product of the startup ecosystem, which kind of really helped me also be a very important aspect in my application as a strength, because not only I gained a very strong understanding into the function of marketing, but I was also very close to the overall dynamics of running a business. So that's about me. I am currently based out of Kuala Lumpur, and I've been loving my life here. And I'm also excited about the prospect of moving to Paris soon, to be with HEC Paris. And I'm very, very happy to share, in whatever way I can help to all the other fellow applicants.
Great. That was a lovely introduction, guys. I'm sure that did give applicants a lot of insights. So what we'll do is start this session. I'll just explain how the session would work. So in the first 20 to 25 minutes, we will take in the questions that we have received from applicants already. The most asked questions kind of a thing. And then towards the next 20 to 25 minutes, we'll take in the questions that we can see already coming in the chat box. So if you guys have any questions, please start, entering those in the chat box. We'll take them in the order as they come. Okay, to begin with the first question that we have, it is, what were some of your biggest application challenges and how did you overcome them? Maybe Nimisha, you can start, and then Shivangi, you can also add yours.
Great, I'd be happy to. Um, so I think when I look back, the biggest challenge for me was I didn't have a starting point. I felt like, okay, so just a bit about the whole process. Every school, I believe, has a different number of essays that you have to write. For INSEAD, it was 7, and there's one more which is optional. I think 6 are compulsory, 7 are compulsory. I'm forgetting now. But yeah, and they were all addressing different aspects of your candidature. So for me, the biggest challenge was I had a lot of information and a lot of stories about my life in my head, but I had no idea how to start segregating them and how to start structuring them in a way which would be good for an essay. And there, really, the challenge was to balance my authentic story, but also make it appealing to the admissions panel. So I felt like there was a lot I wanted to say, but I had no idea how to say it and how much to say. And yeah, so it all was quite overwhelming in the beginning. Uh, but I think that's where my consultant really, really helped me out. The MBA and beyond process begins with a very, very at length kind of form where you just fill all sorts of stories, highlights from your career under different topics and buckets, and from there then it's built upwards. So that really helped me organize my thoughts and started bringing structure to what otherwise would have been a very unstructured pile of stories and incidents. So yeah, for me that was the biggest challenge, but hopefully but luckily I was able to overcome it.
And just to add to that, I think what Nimisha said is, I think I can say on behalf of a lot of people and myself that this is a challenge which everybody going through the application cycle will definitely face. So it's definitely not a unique challenge to me or Nimisha because, like for example, if I'm talking about myself, the biggest challenge was to tackle the imposter syndrome because I don't know if it's about growing up in India or whatever it is, but you are constantly made to feel that this is not the best. There's a lot of other people who are probably doing much better than you. So when it starts to showcasing, it's about showcasing your strength. You don't recognize that as a strength within yourself to even begin with. So, and then comes the problem, once you work with somebody, so for example, when you work with a consultant, they help you see your life from a different lens. So for me, for example, I always saw that, I saw a lot of profiles and most of them came from like a typical background of either working with bigger brands or working abroad. None of that is something which I had. And also I came from a startup background and I did not see a lot of successful applicants within that ecosystem. And I thought to myself, this is my biggest flaw. But then when I spoke to a consultant, she made me realize that, what, business or, companies are actually looking for somebody who's very flexible, somebody who can adjust to changes, and which is what you have. You have experience in different industries. So, when you're working with somebody, what you are seeing maybe as a negative thing could actually be your strength. And to identify that and really bring it into a beautiful, powerful, impactful story is actually the biggest challenge that I think everybody would have faced. And as Nimisha rightly pointed, I think the consultants at MD and Beyond did an amazing fab job in that. As she mentioned, like they really break it down for you. I remember on my first call, I was, so panicked. I was so anxious that I was like, I can't go through this journey. And you put all your efforts in your GMAT, and then you think that, oh my god, I've already achieved this now. It should get easier, but it just keeps getting worse if you don't have the right person to really work with. Plus, all of the deadlines keep piling up, and then you're thinking that, oh my god, I'm having such difficulties in my first school. How about the next few schools that I've targeted? So I think MBA and Beyond really breaks it down. They give you starting points to work with. They'll give you an entire performer format wherein they'll separately ask about you, about your strengths, and then they kind of help you, build your story. So yeah, I think if that answer helps anyone, these were the challenges I really faced and how the team helped me.
Got it, guys. Shivangi, I do remember the challenges that you had to face in the beginning. It was cross-questioning everything that Shivangi wrote in the content gathering bit, where applicants are supposed to write a lot of stories, as you guys mentioned, a lot of stories. And I think Shivangi was like, I'm writing it, but I don't know, if it's making sense in any ways. And who's going to review it? Is the reviewer does know, like, do they know my profile? Do they understand my profile? Do they understand like how is this story going to work in my application? And I told her, yes, it will. Maybe they are new to your profile as well, but it will make them proper sense. And I think that's when and I think few months back I started seeing all these interview invites rolling in for Shivani and even for Nimisha. So I was like, yes, I don't think I need to check on her. She's doing amazingly fine. So yeah, that was a good experience. Coming back to the next question that we have, it is how can applicants highlight strengths in their applications while addressing any profile negatives? Maybe Shivangi, you can start, and then Nimisha, you can add on.
Sorry. Yeah, I think one of the challenges which people face while highlighting the negative is constantly trying to throw a blanket over it and making it sound like, what, this is not really a weakness. And I think that sounds, that might really not work in your favor because the people who are reviewing your essays in the colleges are all experienced people. They've been doing this for a couple of years, and you're not fooling anyone by doing that. If you have a direct question asking for your weakness, put in your weakness, but do emphasize on the fact on how you're working on it. Right? Don't just leave it that I am bad at time management. Just say that realizing this that, for example, created a 2 by 2 matrix of urgency versus importance, and this is how I'm working on. So I think that is imperative, and your strength anyway. Everybody will be able to curate a very beautiful story around strength. I don't think that's a particular challenge for anyone. But ironically or funny enough, like the college people are very smart and they'll ask you to put both your strength and your weakness in one same essay. So you really have to kind of show off a balance. You cannot just show one side very good and the other side, pathetically bad. So you can't all be like, I'm an amazing person and I'm literally perfect at everything that I do. And at the same time, you cannot also go into a self-loathing mode and say that, oh my God, there are 10,000 problems in me. It definitely has to be a balance, but always remember while highlighting negatives, highlight how you're working on it. So that would be my advice.
I think I'd pretty much echo what Shivangi said. It can be a bit daunting thinking about putting down your weaknesses on a piece of paper, and you may even wonder how that might appear to the admissions panel. But one thing that my consultant told me throughout the journey was you need to realize that at the end of the day, everyone is a human, and the weaknesses you may have may not necessarily be unique to you. There'll be a lot of people who may be exhibiting those traits. So there's no harm, firstly, in enlisting those. It gives you a more humane look and feel in front of the admissions committee. They appreciate that. But at the same time, really, the thing that you then focus on the most is how you're trying to overcome it, how the efforts that you're putting in to make the whole situation better, and really what your learnings have been in the process of uncovering or discovering this weakness in your personality or whatever at yeah, so they just kind of want to see your ability to work on things and the kind of dedication to make it better instead of just sitting there and being like, yeah, this is me, take me as I am. So yeah, that would be it from my side as well.
Got it. And also talking about learnings and how you're gonna think about your weaknesses. I feel that MBA and Beyond has designed this this thing very beautifully, where applicants can see the topic of their weakness. They can write, they can describe that weakness particularly, and then write in detail about what, uh, you know why do they feel that, and maybe a story, like attach a story as to why do you feel that is your weakness. And then there's a very important and a very crucial aspect in that is just learnings. Like, what do you take from that? And that is something which schools directly look for in your essays, and that is something which you are supposed to portray in your essays. And that is also where your 50% of the work is done. You know what your weaknesses are. You have discussed this with the consultant. The consultant now knows how to put this in your story and how to help you understand and be ready for the interviews as well. So this is something that definitely helps the applicants. Just wanted to add this to the answer. We have
Sakshi,
the
if I
next.
may add just one more point
Yeah.
here. I mean, you reminded me of one very helpful resource that I got from MBA and Beyond, which was
Mhm.
obviously this topic in particular is not an easy topic to write about because you want to balance yourself showcasing the fact that you're overcoming it with the fact that okay, but you do have mistakes, but you don't want to overdo it on either side. So one thing that really helped me was my consultant sent me samples as well of snippets from what earlier candidates had written. Of course, it was scrubbed, there were no names and stuff, but that helped me articulate things a lot better. Like I felt like I knew my own weaknesses, but I had no idea how to put them down in a presentable format which sounds professional. So yeah, that for me in particular was super, super helpful. But yeah, I just wanted to add that.
Yeah. So I think because an applicant is also someone who is new to the process, I think applicants really have this first line, Sakshi, I'm new to this, we are like totally dependent on you. And that's the reason samples do really help, be it your essays, your content gathering, your resume, because sometimes you want to be sure about everything. So you want to know how the other person has written it or how many people have written it the same way. So there is resources for everything that you wanna work on for the applications. Moving on to the next question over here, we have which factors matters most when choosing a business school for academic, career, and personal growth? Maybe
Yeah,
Nimisha, you can start, and then Nisha, Shivangi, you go ahead.
I think I have a very negative side to this to share, and probably there are people who can learn from my mistakes. So when I decided to go for my MBA, I really solely focused on first getting my GMAT sorted, and that is why I couldn't put in a lot of efforts into really researching about schools. And then when it came about shortlisting schools, I just had geography in mind, and that's about it. But thankfully, because I was working with experienced consultants at MBA and beyond who had actually worked or had been a part of the colleges that I was aspiring to, they really did help me make that research, gave me the right formats on the way to research schools. But I would suggest even before you start planning your GMAT, it is better to kind of understand what is it that you're looking out of your MBA. If it's just an MBA tag, if it's just a salary hike, if it's the right network, if it's an international exposure, you have to make that call before even you start applying. So the first one in order is definitely going to be the geography. Um, what I did research, for example, when you go into Europe, right, when you're trying to find roles, there's a lot of restrictions around languages and visa requirements. Thinking back, I also feel like I should have applied to the US business school. So, first get your priorities sorted in terms of where do you want to live for the next 5 to 7 years. I see a lot of people say that, I'm going to stay in this country for a small period of time and then my goal is to come back to India. That is not really a very smooth transition or a very smooth plan to always have because it will have many factors reporting into it. So be sure of the geography. Be sure of what industry you want to be in. So you would have definitely done your research. Let's say INSEAD is amazing at placing into consultancy, right? I never wanted to be in management consulting, so that was not my first call. Which I realized, in fact, after I had applied to INSEAD, because it's Sakshi also remembers, I had just been screaming that my dream school is INSEAD, but I realized that that is not the place that I want to be after I did my application. So, don't make this mistake. Be very sure of what you want. Because once you get your admission, then it's going to be a very deadly dilemma for you to choose which one do you have to go to. So be sure of the geography, be sure of the industry. Talk to as many people as you can from your respective industry where you want to transition into from the people who studied not just in the current batch, but maybe leading up to the 5 years of that batch. So I would suggest take these three things in mind while selecting a college and be early with it. Don't keep it for the end time.
For me, I think uh, there were three main factors. One would, of course, be geography. So I'd been in India all my life. Then I moved to the Middle East, got a bit of an idea of the region. And the next logical step, or rather, one step that kind of satiated my curiosity would be then going to the European region. So that was definitely one. INSEAD would, for me, INSEAD was undisputably the best over there. So that was one factor. The second was, I mean, I agree with Shivangi, but I would also differ in a certain way, which is when you think about the industry you want to exit to. Of course, INSEAD has great consulting placements, but at the same time, I would probably even want to explore what all other options are there. So in that regard, I think diversity for me played a very, very big role. So the diversity of the cohort that I would get to be a part of was something that I was evaluating quite closely. And that way, INSEAD was a great choice because you have people from 70, more than 70 countries, I think. It differs every year, of course. So that was one thing. The third for me was also ROI, which is extremely important. Your master's, your MBA in particular, is such a big financial commitment uh, that that was very high up on my priority list. Um, I I mean, the 1 year program to me was, I guess, like a perfect sweet spot for me, because my bachelor's degree was in management studies too. So I knew that uh, if even if they're condensing the program into 1 year, hopefully I'll be able to keep up to pace with it. And I didn't really see the value then in a 2 year MBA for me personally. So the ROI factor was also super important for me. And yeah, apart from that, of course, there's so many things. There's the strength of the alumni network. For example, if you're looking to move to a different geography or a different industry, these are the people you reach out to. They'll help you. There are, of course, I mean, and this is way down the list, but if there's a particular professor or a particular elective that you think that you might definitely want to add to your educational credentials, those are also factors you can consider. But yeah, the three main ones for me were geography, diversity, and ROI.
Got it, guys. I think that was very well answered by both of you. Then we have the next question, which is also the last from our pool of questions that we have received. It's a lot of applicants struggle with choosing the right mentor in this journey. What do you think are some key factors in choosing the best fit consultant for yourself? Maybe Shivangi, you can go and start.
Yeah, so I think it is absolutely very important for you to get paired up with the right person, because this person is going to be with you for over a period of 6 months, and it is absolutely imperative that you both are on the same team. Right? That said, everybody has different personality traits, so it is not it doesn't make sense for you. I mean, I think in an alternative world, you would be really, okay with working with everyone. But for example, for me, I am a very anxious person, right? I imagine the worst in things before even starting. And my need was to have somebody who could actually understand this temperament and help me sail through this process, because it's not a short process. It is 6 months of anxiety looking forward, right? So for me, it was very important that somebody who understands my perspective and does not make me feel judged. Of course, there are a lot of other elements in terms of their experience in the industry, how good the writing skills are, etc., etc. But I think that is something which you literally find in mostly every consultant. I think the personal traits of them understanding your story and where you're coming from is absolutely important. I think Sakshi did an amazing job at helping me through this journey. I got paired with somebody which was not kind of working out. We both came from very different backgrounds, from very different industries. We were not able to understand me, and I was not able to understand that person. And I gave a panic call to Sakshi, and I was like, "Oh my God, is this what my 6 months are going to look like?" And she first calmed me down, and when I started working with my actual consultant, I just told her that that my husband and I were joking as to how I'm not able to sleep because of the anxiety, and she on my first very call itself ensured me that you don't have to lose your sleep over this. We will work through it, right? So even that level of comfort, that word of comfort, really helped me in my journey. So and I think again, thanks to Sakshi for ensuring that I have the smoothest of experiences, even transitioning mentor, which is not an easy thing to do in itself. So yeah, that would be my 2 cents.
I think I completely agree with what Shivangi said. I feel like that whole period is so stressful that even if you're not generally an anxious person, you do end up becoming that for that short while. So definitely being paired up with someone who understands your temperament and can see things in your profile that you don't necessarily see is extremely important. I think for me, the biggest factor was, of course, we all do our research. I also looked up all possible consultants in the market. But for me, what truly stood out about MBA and Beyond is, at least for INSEAD, their positioning was amazing. The number of success stories and the variety of candidates that they helped successfully convert into NCR admits. I think what did it for me was there was this one testimonial from an applicant whose GMAT was somewhere in the 600 range, and mid 600 or maybe late 600, I don't remember. And at that time my GMAT score was that too. So that kind of gave me the confidence that, okay, this is someone who has been in my shoes, and if they were able to help them, I certainly stand a chance. So there's definitely that. And for me, this was very important because INSEAD was the only school I was applying to. So it was this or nothing for me. So, so yeah, for me, this very unique positioning really helped me. Of course, they also have candidates who have much higher GMAT scores and stuff. And ultimately, I was also able to retake my GMAT and increase my score by a bit. So that all worked out great. But I guess that initial confidence that I got that, okay, they can help me even in this situation, I think that was a very important factor for me. So yeah, a track record, I guess, a proven track record in where you're trying to get would be a very important fit. And like I think Shivangi highlighted the flexibility, then once you're in the MBA and beyond system, they really try to do what's best for you. So whether that's moving you to another consultant or within the same consultant giving you all the resources you could possibly need. So yeah, I guess talking to people who have enrolled with that particular consultant would really, really help and give you an insight into what day to day looks like.
Got it. Thanks, Tanisha and Shivangi, for the detailed answer. What we can do is start taking the questions from the applicants. So guys, it would be great if you can, unmute your mics. I'll just call out the names and you can unmute your mics and ask the questions. It's totally fine if you guys cannot, but it would be great, to engage with the consultants and the speakers. So we have the first question from Sanket. Sanket, it would be great if you can just unmute your mic and ask your questions around LORs.
Hi, Sakshi. I didn't know that I will be first one to ask the question. So I have a question on LORs. So I read the INSEAD request to LORs. Is it mandatory that we have to take LOR from our direct supervisor? And if we cannot take due to some reason, so what should be strategy for that?
So when you say direct supervisor, do you mean your current direct supervisor
Yeah,
or?
right. My manager.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I also took LORs from my previous managers. Uh, I guess anybody who's worked in a very close capacity with you would work. I mean, I also had these doubts because you want your LOR to be the best, etc. But from what I remember, what MB and Beyond told me, which worked in my case, was anybody who can talk to your professional character in great detail would be a good fit for writing your LORs. Of course, the closer they are to you in terms of if it's your direct manager, even better because they have more visibility. But anybody who's in a reasonably close capacity uh, would typically be okay.
Understood. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Also to add on, Sanket, it's as Namisha said, it's someone who's very close to you. What they need to really know is they need to know you. Be it, like if you're close to the founder, let's say, the founder should know your daily tasks, your strengths, your weaknesses, the roles that you're taking up. They should know you really well. That's what really matters. It's not about the ranking or who you're reporting to. So that's the key always for any school that you apply to. So yeah, we have
Okay.
the
Thank you.
yeah.
All right,
Thank you.
just a quick thing over here. Indeed, I mean, guys, what we prefer is a direct supervisor. But having said that, after COVID, actually during COVID, what happened was that the applicants, they were wary about telling their direct supervisors that I'm going to leave the company, because already there were a lot of firings and layoffs happening, right? So the schools also became quite comfortable, not getting directly from the supervisors, and that trend is following now. So that actually has been followed. Having said that, priority number one, your direct supervisor. If not, we can definitely work it out.
Thank you.
Got it,
Very helpful.
Shantanu. Yeah. We have the next question from Divyanshu. Uh, Divyanshu, if you can just unmute your mic and ask the questions. It's about international exposure. So yeah. I'll just read out the question just in case he's not able to unmute. It's about does international exposure mandatory is mandatory for making it to INSEAD, considering I come from an Indian background. Nimisha, anything that you want to add?
So I'll say it definitely adds an edge to your application. They do value international exposure and experience a lot at INSEAD, but I also know of a few batchmates, to be batchmates of mine, who have worked in India throughout. But I guess one thing that would be important there is I think all of them worked with consultants because simply because Indians are so overrepresented in any top institution abroad that it would be good to have someone guiding you. But I don't think it should be a detriment to your profile. But yeah, in that case, just that effective guidance becomes super important just so that you can bring out your absolute best to stand at the same level as people who may be bringing international experience as well.
Shivangi, anything that you want to add? Yeah.
Yeah, I think also international exposure is a very broad term, which we kind of end up forgetting sometimes. So it doesn't necessarily have to be about you being in an international geography and working. I think even if you have managed to work with a team who's sitting abroad, right? If you work with international clients, if you really work on those projects which have included an international audience also helps. The idea for the school to judge you on this basis is just so that they can understand that, when you are going to be in their community, you are going to be able to gel well, right? So that's the only criteria as to why they ask international experience. As Nimisha said, it is not the only factor. If you have 10,000 other powerful things in your, storyline, it will definitely come through. But yes, having an international experience really creates an edge. And again, I would kind of urge you guys to work with people who can make you realize where this is what an international experience can also count as. Right. So, for example, for me, I also did not work abroad, but I did kind of travel for events. But let's even if we bar that, I was working for a company where my CEO was sitting out of the London office. My other team was sitting out of the London office. So even that counts as a very strong international experience if you are able to communicate as to what value did you get by working with these teams or on this project, right? That's the only criteria. If it's not there, it is fine. It should not be your tip to not apply to that school. But yes, if it's there, definitely amplify it to whatever length you can in the right way.
Absolutely rightly said, Shivangi. I think we 100% agree. We can move on to the next question, which is from Sanjana. So, Sanjana, if you can just unmute your mic and ask the question about, your GRE, which I feel is really great.
Hello, hi. Am I audible? Yeah.
Yes,
Uh,
you are.
so I have around 328 GRE score, which is I wrote it in the test center itself. So I'm applying for INSEAD and HEC Paris. So INSEAD is my first priority for that. And currently I have my own digital advertising startup, which is about 8 months old. So the reason reason why I'm doing this MBA is because I want to build networks as well as to work upon my business too. And the you can say the negative or the positive sort of a sign. I have low GPA in my graduation. So I did my graduation in tourism. So yeah, this is about my profile. So I just wanted to know if my profile works for the colleges which I've selected.
I
Yeah.
think, honestly speaking, I think I completely understand where you're coming from. Before I started this journey, my entire basis of thinking whether I would make or not make to a school was my GMAT score. By the way, I didn't give GRE. So honestly, there is no right or wrong score. I have seen people get into INSEAD and HEC at 650 also, right? So now that you already have your score, I would suggest to not think too much about it, but actually work with somebody who can help you bring out those positive stories to kind of compensate if at all you do not fall in their cutoff range. Right, and that's, I think, a lot of people have done that. Not so. I think every college understands that GMAT and GRE are a function of your performance in a particular few hours, And you can be really lucky and you can be really unlucky as well, right? And this is the reason why they don't really focus solely. And this is especially true for European schools. I can definitely tell you that they are really, even if you look at the questions that they have, specifically from HEC's perspective, I'm saying the questions that they have in their applications had so much to know and learn about the candidate's personal life. Who are they as a person? What are their values? What motivates them? In fact, HEC barely had any question on your work achievement, right? So do not fret too much over your score, and this is for everyone. While try to have a score which is on the safe side of the score that at which the school admits. I think for you, sorry, I'm forgetting the name who asked this question, but I would definitely suggest for you to get like a profile audit done ASAP from the MBA and Beyond team, because they also do a brilliant job at guiding you that, this will work, this will not work, this is something we have to work on together. This is something that we can make and sound better, etc. So that would be it. I think don't think too much about your score until unless you are really ready to give and go through. See, even the GMAT and GRE prep is not an easy one. It's a whole process you have to go through mentally, physically. So if you have the time and luxury to appear again, you can and up your score. But I suggest there's not a lot of work in it, because you might as well spend that time and start your applications early and really put in the work in your application.
Okay. The what I'm concerned about is like I have a startup. So will they accept the applicants who has the startup rather than doing a 9 to 5 job or having a proper work experience sort
Of
of a
course.
thing?
I think,
They love founders.
Yeah, I was just
yeah,
going to
yeah. And in
say
fact,
that.
you more than anyone will be able to add a lot of more skills and value to the community, right? Somebody who's worked a 9 to 5 is just restricted to their own function and their own expertise. But you probably have more experiences and more stories to tell across different business functions, and that is definitely a strength. And this is exactly what I was referring to when I started this conversation, that thanks to our imposter syndrome, even our successes sometimes appear as failures to us. So get somebody who can help you see the mirror of the amazing work you've done so far and use that in your essay.
Yeah. And also I can get my like a letter of recommendations from my clients as well as the business associates which I'm working with, right?
No, that's amazing. I think if you get an LOR from the client, there's nothing like it, because I mean, that really has a lot of value to add. So if you have that, you have an amazing startup experience, you have a good score, it's not a bad score. I would suggest go for it.
Okay. So I'll take a plunge. Let's see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the best.
Surely.
Thank
All the
you.
best. All the best. Guys, we have the next question that we can take is from Shashwat. For Shashwat, I think it would be great if you can unmute your mic because it's a detailed question. I think everyone should be able to understand the question and answer it.
Got it, got it. Hi everyone. Thanks for the session basically. My question is that it's a bit of a personal side. I'm as currently working in basically energy sector, and I will be having a total of 4 years of work ex before joining the B school. And my future goal is to basically join or switch to energy consulting. So for that, would it make sense for me to switch to energy consulting right now to take prior experience? Like I will be having 1 year experience if I switch right now till September 2025 intake, or should I continue with the same company to take advantage of the, if there exists any, take advantage of the less represented energy sector for the applications?
I think it's your personal call, to be honest, but it's a completely, as you said, it's a personal thing. But I don't think if you want to move into energy consulting, you need to definitely have a background of energy consulting. You need to have an understanding of the industry, which you already have. And if you get an experience into energy consulting, I think it's definitely good. But you would at that time also have to suggest that why are you considering your MBA if you are already doing good in your industry right now, which is your end term goal. But of course, there are ways to justify that as well. That you can say that you want to be more into strategic level, decision making power is limited in your etc. etc. But I would say it's not a prerequisite. I think a lot of people do their MBAs to actually switch industries in the end, and they don't have prior. I mean, that's the whole point of switching industries, right? So it's not a prerequisite. I think either works. If you have the luxury of time, you're okay with delaying your MBA for another year, go ahead and get that experience. It will definitely count as helpful, but you already would have the industry experience, which matters at the end of it all. So yeah, anything to add, Manisha?
Yeah, so I actually have a batchmate, future batchmate who has a very similar profile to yours, and their aspirations are the exact same. They've worked on the technical side of things in the ENR industry, and now post their MBA, they mostly want to switch to consulting. So yeah, that's definitely an option. One more thing that I'm seeing people in my cohort go for if they want to switch to consulting later is to, once you get your acceptance, you can even try to apply for a pre-MBA internship, which is typically a 2 to 3 month internship that you do between your whatever job you may be doing. So you quit that, and then before your program starts, you start with the pre-MBA internship. That, however, from what I'm understanding, uh, could also be more to just kind of help streamline your efforts once you're in the B school. Suppose you do an internship, you do your consulting internship, and you realize, okay, it sounded great, but this is not for me. So then that'll help you during your program that, okay, consulting is not for me, so let me then go on exploring what other things I can do. So that can also serve that purpose alongside, of course, providing you with some amount of experience. But yeah, like Shivangi said, there's no like fixed right or wrong path here. And it's actually a very common trend that people from the technical side of an industry may want to switch to consulting post their MBA.
Thanks. That was really helpful. Thank you.
I think just to add, if you're considering that, you might as well have to have a great answer, because the AdCom is really looking to understand your reason of doing an MBA, right? And if they find a reason that you're already able to achieve what you want to achieve without an MBA by being in that industry, then it might be a counterproductive point to your application. So, be really clear that even if you are going into energy consulting, why is it then after that you would need an MBA, right? So just think through that as well.
Got it. Thanks. Thanks a lot.
I hope we were able to answer the question. We'll take the next question from, I hope I'm not pronouncing the name wrong. It's Laboni. It's about,
Yeah,
yeah, if
you're.
you can just unmute your mic.
Thanks, you pronounce it fine. Thank you for the session, first of all. Actually, I think parts of this question were answered before, but I was just curious, and if it's okay for you to share how you went about answering your answer to why MBA. And why I'm asking this is also because I work in the nonprofit sector, and I'm thinking about MBA, but also maybe an MPP and other programs. So yeah, what was your answer to why MBA, and how did you go about answering?
I think I would definitely love to answer this one first, because I did not have any one clear answer on why MBA, right? And when I started working with people, when I started talking to people, a lot of them said that, I mean, how is it that you're doing an MBA and you're not clear? And that made me feel so sad and, so unfocused as to what am I doing with my life. And that's where my consultant came in and assured me that it's absolutely normal to not know why you want to do an MBA. And honestly, you will also, maybe if you don't have your clear goals right now, I'm telling you, you might have a clearer picture once you start writing your application. I honestly began with 4 very different bang opposite reasoning as to why I want to do my MBA. And then I remember somebody telling me that, you cannot have all these options. And I was like, "Okay, options rakhte hai, we'll see in the end." But it doesn't work like that. You need to get your story straight, right? And okay, this was one part of it. Second part of it, when I'm actually through a college now, and now am I realizing that will I be able to actually achieve what I'm looking for my MBA, right? So actually, those people who were saying that it's important for you to, know your reason, who I was thinking that they're stupid people, they were actually right. You definitely need to know why you're doing an MBA, but it is absolutely normal to not know doing it on the very first day. So my personal reason, although had always been that, I think I mentioned earlier that I'm a product of the startup ecosystem. And for me, I was finding it very difficult to crack into companies which are MNCs, global companies, because every one of these companies had listed MBA as a prerequisite, right? So I had a very easy way to justify it. My narrative was that I don't want an MBA, I need an MBA to kind of proceed in my career. So that really helped me. I lucked out with this reasoning, I can say that. But yes, you cannot just give that reason, right? You have to also justify what industry do you want to be in, what kind of roles do you want to be in, how can you not achieve those goals already without doing an MBA. So a lot of things come into play. And even if you're not here today, give it some time, right? Think over it, sleep over it. I remember I spent so many sleepless nights on this question, and I was like, अगर मेरे से यही नहीं हो रहा, then how will I answer the other questions? How will I give my interviews? My God, it was the whole process, honestly, that I went through. And I think I see Nimisha laughing, and I assume she must have gone through the same thing. So yeah, so I gave you my reason, but I also told you that, I honestly have no idea as to why I'm doing it, except for maybe wanting a career sabbatical, having fun, and then maybe earning lots of money after that. So that's a simple reason, but unfortunately, you can't say that to an answer. Yeah.
I think my story was very similar to Shivangi. When I started, I had all of these, very disparate kind of reasons, like five, six different things, and there was no way to, in my mind, to make it one comprehensive, airtight kind of a story, which also connected to my aspirations beyond the MBA. And I think that is one thing where my consultant really helped me. And this is one topic that we went over till I would say 3 days before I had to submit my application, where they would just be like, Nimisha, what? And then I'd get annoyed, and then they'd get, okay, but you can do it. So yeah, it's actually, it sounds like the most common and most straightforward question, but it's not, because you have to go one step ahead and make it defensible. So you may have a particular vision for yourself, via MBA, and it may seem very obvious to you, it may seem very obvious to your peers, but the admissions committee is really, really going to test that logic behind it. So there, I think it helps to kind of have a vision on what you seek to extract the most from your MBA, what you want after your MBA, and have somebody help you kind of thread it all together into a seamless story of sorts. So yeah, that's like the biggest legwork that I had to put into my application. But yeah, it really helped having my consulting on board for this one in particular.
I think like what I faced, I personally struggled with what story makes the most sense, right? As opposed to what actually I want to do. You will not believe that because I was in healthcare, I once said that my goal is to maybe have a health tech business back in India. And then I literally drafted an entire business plan just to justify how that entrepreneurial model would make sense. Right. So it sounds all sorts of crazy, but it's important that you go through this journey because it also, I mean, I always say that I know myself better after this entire MBA journey because now I know what motivates me, what are my interests, which I didn't know when I was starting. Right. So if it helps, write it down, learn from our mistakes and don't make it sound what sounds the best and the most beautifully packed story. Make it, and I think as much as I can tell you this, I know for a fact that humans are inclined to this behavior, and you will end up making a story which sounds beautiful. But try to curb that feeling and just try to write it down. What do you want to do? Even if you have 10 ideas, right? Keep it with you. Eventually, I'm telling you, within the next 2 to 3 weeks after being with that idea, you will be able to nail down. Because at the end of the day, you will have one college deadline and you'll have to pick one story and go ahead with it. So it'll all fall into place. But don't think that if this is something that you have in mind and it sounds stupid. Right? It is very, every person's goal is very unique to them, and it doesn't. Nobody is clear from day one as to why they want to do something that they do.
No, I absolutely agree, Shivangi. Um, anything else that you guys want to add for this question? No?
All good.
We have the next question from Supriyo, which is about scholarships. And it's if you can enlighten you guys about scholarships or grants. Shivang, if you want to take this one.
Yeah, I honestly don't know how it works, and I don't think anybody does. It's a very internal process to every school. But yes, they will list down a couple of scholarships on their website as well. So just go through each one of them, see what makes the most sense to you. They'll have need based, they will have merit based. See which particular scholarship you can pick up and really justify as to why you would need that scholarship. And one thing about I think EU-based schools is that they focus a lot more on merit-based scholarships. So you don't have to constantly highlight that you need financial help, because at the end of the day, everyone would. So if it's, let's say, in leadership, for example, for me, women in leadership. So if I am able to make the story sound as to how I helped the gender empowerment in my company, or maybe I led some amazing project, always quantify everything while even in your essays or in your scholarship essays, and just apply to it. Honestly, I personally don't know how it works, so I can't answer that. But I can also suggest that look for school-based scholarships, but also look for independent scholarships. So for example, in France, there's and this is something actually my adcom at APC helped me with. So it's very helpful to actually talk to them, right, and try to understand the process. So I think the outcome of most schools will connect with you even before you start applying. So keep posting your questions to them. They are very, very flexible in answering and very helpful. So try to understand from them as to which scholarships do you stand the most chance in. And my ADCOM member also redirected me to a couple of scholarships which were independent. There's a treaty between Indian and France governments, which helps Indian students in France, right? So they have some clause wherein they take care of your monthly expenses, things like that, right? So apply to a bunch of them and see what you come through. But I personally don't know how it works internally with the college.
Got it. Anything, Nimisha, that you want to add?
Yeah, I think for the application bit, in INSEAD, there's again a bunch of options to choose from. And one thing that I found helpful was so every scholarship application you have to kind of support with a story or and like a story basically, or an incident or something. So during your initial content gathering stage, the wider the net you cast, I think the more helpful it becomes, because it plugs into even these kind of secondary requirements such as scholarships. So um then, like, once you spend so much time on your profile and the content in your profile, it becomes much easier during the scholarship stage to kind of handpick stories and then plug them into a narrative that fits the requirement for that scholarship. So that's just another tip there.
Got it. We have the next question from Venkatesh, which is, could you please share insights about Jan intake and fall intake? Nimisha, if you want to take this one. It's for INSEAD.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah. So I'll be joining the fall intake. So I don't know too much yet. I'm hoping I get to know more once I'm on the campus. But I think one major difference that is there between these two intakes is the fall intake doesn't have the summer internship, but the Jan intake does, because it goes from Jan to December. So the summer break is during your course. For the fall intake, it's from August and then you graduate in June. So your program is effectively ending in summer. But I'd say that's the biggest difference that is there between the two. Then I think other differences are depending on the intake, the location of, say, your graduation ceremony and your graduation party may differ, things like that. That's all I know off the top of my head. But I'm sure these differentiating factors, etc., would be easily available online if somebody's interested.
Got it. Got it, guys. I think we can take one last question from Hemin. So, Hemin, if you can just unmute your mic and ask the question, that would be really great. Okay. It's a long question. What we can do is we can take the next question, which is from an applicant. They've asked about which is preferred. Is it GMAT or GRE, and any reason to prefer one over the other?
I think what floats your boat, to be honest. It doesn't matter if you have GMAT or GRE. It matters that you have a decent enough score to be considered in that school. So a lot of people find GRE comparatively easier. I loved the experience of GMAT, the kind of courses it had, the kind of questions it had. So I personally went with GMAT.
Same for me. I think it was more a factor of everyone around me was only taking the GMAT, coming from consulting and then a business degree before that. So, honestly, I didn't consider GRE, but I do know people who have gotten with GRE. And of course, what matters is you get a decent score on either of the exam. I guess whatever exam you're choosing to take, it's looked at in conjunction with the rest of your profile. So that gives you a bit of a safety net or cushioning. I mean, basically, it's all taken into consideration as a whole. So no strict this or that preference in this regard.
Got it, Nimisha. We have, I can see one hand raised from Nav. Nav, you can just unmute yourself and ask the question.
I can see the time is running up, so I'll be very quick. Nimisha, this question is for you. I heard that in the INSEAD, there's the question and answer round, wherein you have to make a video of yourself and answer certain questions. Can you tell us what kind of questions they ask, how you went about it?
So yeah, so this stage happens right after you submit your application. It's so the thing is, the key here would really be don't overthink it. I was full on spazzing before this because this was right after I submitted my application. It's one thing to submit it on paper, and it's another thing to talk to a screen with nobody on the other side. But I would say the questions can really vary from anything to anything, and that's what my consultant told me throughout, that I will not suggest you practice anything for this because you'll just end up working yourself up with little to no value add. So just go with a calm and cool, confident mind. And that's exactly what it was. The questions that they asked me were, I cannot remember exactly what they were, but they were pretty straightforward. Anybody who has been working for a while should be able to easily have a conversation on those kind of topics for 1 to 2 minutes. So I would say the complexity is not very high. What truly matters there is your presence on screen, your body language, and they kind of basically just want to check for the fact that you are able to think on your feet. And it's fine if your speech is not absolutely crystal clear. I know I stuttered. I know I made grammatical errors. At one point, I thought I forgot how to speak in English. But I don't think those factors act as an impediment. They really just want to see you for the person that you are so that they can take a holistic view of your application. But yeah, the topics are completely varied, but very like general conversation topics.
Can you name a few? Just to give me like some idea.
So I think it could be anything like, okay, what does a good day at work look like for you? Or
Yeah, I agree.
talk
They're
about,
very random.
yeah,
Very,
like
very
anything.
random.
Like I think
Sure,
one was
I'm
on
just happy to have a
social
conversation with
responsibility or
Star
something.
and
Anything.
regarding the role.
I remember, I think there was a question also on that you're working with an international manager and he said something which is culturally offensive to you. What would you do? So very weird. I think I agree with Manisha. There is no way for you to prepare for this. And I think if you try to mug up answers, it just makes it worse because you can't recall it in the questions. And then if you're very stuttered when you see the questions which you've not prepared for. Although there is a list online that would be available, I think, of sample questions. So just to practice, go through it. That's all.
Thank you. That was very insightful. I had no idea, no questions that was coming to me. So thank you. Thank you, Nimisha, and thank you.
Great. That brings us to the end of the session, guys. In the chat box, there is a feedback form, and I would request all of you to really fill that because it would help us, understand what kind of topics and discussions that you'd like to hear. And also, there's an interesting catch: is you'll receive an email from me after this session, which has a unique offering, which will be that you will only be required to pay the amount once you get an admit. That is 100% of the amount. So please check out for the email after this session. And thank you so much, Nimisha and Shivangi, for joining it. I think it was a wonderful session. Lovely insights. I'm sure people really loved it.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure to help as many people as you can.
Thanks a
Great.
lot,
Thank you
guys,
so
and
much,
all the
everyone.
very best.
Yes.
Great.
Good luck.
Thank you,
Good luck
guys.
with your
Have
next
a
meeting.
great weekend ahead.